Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Hello everyone. First of all, I would like to say thank you for coming to the presentation today. My name is Adinda Meitharina, and the topic that will be discussed in today's presentation is about Thailand government policy and overcoming human trafficking. So the material that will be discussed in today's presentation is about definition of human trafficking in Thailand, type of human trafficking in Thailand, factor causing human trafficking in Thailand, and Thai government effort in overcoming human trafficking. First material is about human trafficking. Human trafficking is the act of recruiting, transporting, harboring, sending, transferring, or reserving a person by means of the threat of force, use of force, kidnapping, confinement, fraud, deception, abuse of power, or a position of vulnerability, or payment or benefit, so as to obtain the consent of the person who has control over another person, whether carried out within a country or between countries, for the purpose for exploiting of causing people to be exploited. There are several things that can be categorized as human trafficking, such as working without pay, and the most popular is sexual exploitation. Usually, the women and the children are promised certain jobs, but they end up being hired as a commercial sex workers. Kidnapping of children through social networking sites that have occurred recently can also trigger child trafficking. Next slide is human trafficking in Thailand. The existence of human trafficking has been feared in various countries, especially in Thailand, where the country is still developing in Southeast Asia, which has a high level of human trafficking. In this case, human trafficking that occurred in Thailand is a very crucial event, because human trafficking in Thailand is increasing from year to year. The government pays serious attention to this case. Victims of human trafficking in Thailand are mostly women and children. Traffickers in Thailand are forced to become laborers with low wage. 57% of workers in Thailand are victims of human trafficking. Thailand is the country origin transit destination of the largest human trafficking victims in the various countries. Thailand is a central sexual and labor exploitation in the greater sub-Mekong region. So, human trafficking that occurs also involves countries directly bordering Thailand, territory as Laos, Myanmar, and Cambodia. At the same time, Thailand is also one of the countries with the largest migration flow, especially in the sub-Mekong region. As a transit country for the human trafficking, Thailand is a recipient of victims of trafficking from Russia, Poland, the Czech Republic, and South America. Generally, Thailand also sends victims of human trafficking to another country, such as Japan, as a priority destination for the Netherlands, Germany, Australia via Malaysia, Hong Kong, India, and the Middle East region for the purpose of foreign sex business. Next slide is type of human trafficking in Thailand. Result of international workshop in international migration and trafficking in women in Thailand in October 1994, organized by the Global Alliance Against Trafficking in Women, formulated several forms of trafficking in women based on their objective, which including the following. First is trafficking of women for sex work, where they are trafficked to sell themselves by exchanging sexual relations for the money or gift as trade transaction. Second is trafficking of the women for domestic work, where they are trafficked for exploitation of their labor to become migrant workers such as domestic helper, factory worker, and restaurant waiter, of course with very minimum pay. Third is trafficking of women for marriage, where some women and girls who migrated as wives for foreign nationals have been tricked into marriage. In such case, their husband forced this new wife to work for their family in slavery-like conditions or sell them to the sex industry. Next is trafficking of women for forced labor, where forms of coercion and fraud are used to detain a worker with substandard working conditions. Fourth, trafficking of women being. In addition, there are many from trafficking that occur in Thailand related to jobs which allegedly have a hidden purpose for the occurrence of trafficking activities. Namely, first is migration workers, second is sex workers, and mail order bride. Next slide is factor causing human trafficking in Thailand. Human trafficking occurs due to various conditions and different problems. The factors that cause human trafficking are: first is economy. There are several factors in economy that influence merger and option of the human trafficking business. These factors include poverty and unemployment. Therefore, migration is a strategy for survival. Human trafficking, labor exploitation, and migration flow are a link that is always connected to one another. The entry and exit of this migration flow is being target illegal commodities in human trafficking. Lack of knowledge of the country or destination is a weakness of potential victims, so that they are easily devised by human traffickers who offer a better life. One of the supply side in human trafficking from Thailand, the most important role is the state economic condition. The stark income disparity between Thailand and its neighbor is a strong driver for migration flow. The greatest desire of migration process is to find employment in Thailand, which requires development in various fields. This development while at the same time widening the demand side in human trafficking. The easier it is and the more individuals to move places through migration flow, the greater the risk of human trafficking that must be faced. Next is culture. Victims of human trafficking must adapt to a new culture if they go to virgin country. But there are also cultures that actually support and allow slavery and forced marriage that lead to human trafficking. This culture is actually not in accordance with human rights, but generally the culture is associated with religious ritual and belief of the local community. Traffickers will be able to easily devise potential victims caught in the middle of a conflict or with the promise of being taken to a safer place and providing jobs. Low job skill also make it easier for perpetrators to produce their victims. In Thailand, the problem of trafficking in persons, especially young women, for prostitution has been going on for a long time and even extends to other regions such as Cambodia and Myanmar. In northern Thailand, for example, Muku writer about the cultural community of prostitution, where economic income from contemporary prostitution make young women not only benefit traffickers as controller of prostitution. From a cultural perspective, this is done provide a living for the family, village of origin and basic institution as women's social responsibility in society. In ancient times, children were sold to serve as servants in rich families to make ends meet. The northern region of Thailand is one of the areas that in contribution of the human commodities in trade from Thailand, as well as entry point for human trafficking to Thailand. There are several cultural reasons behind this. The lack of the land use in the northern region causes poverty so that parents view their children as trading commodities. As time went on, the sale of children became more and more acceptable, although not very popular. And the last one is globalization. The existence of globalization is a system that makes it easy for various countries in the world to connect with each other easily, affordably. However, globalization also has a negative impact. One of the negative impacts of globalization is, first, globalization only benefits advanced industry, so it tends to be unfair. Second, globalization prioritizes material values over values such as social, environmental, and life. Next is globalization has taken away most of the sovereignty of developing countries, including strategy decisions owned by the community. And then, The claim that everyone will benefit from globalization is not proven. And the last one is the economic system imposed from the outside tends to damage the existing system and lead wrong policies. The negative impact has given rise to various deviations from globalization as spoliation of natural resources, smuggling, drug trafficking, and human trafficking. Next slide is the Thai government effort to tackle humanity trafficking. The issue of humanity trafficking as a part of crime against humanity is not a good phenomenon. Recently, human trafficking has reached a climax, namely in addition to the increasing number of victims from time to time. A very well-organized network of traffickers is also formed, making it difficult to detect and find the root cause of the crime against humanity. For this reason, the government has made various efforts and actions to oppose human trafficking. One of the efforts made is formulated policies. In dealing cases of human trafficking that occurred in Thailand, the government makes several policies and cooperation with its country, including a. Formation of law in overcoming eradication of trafficking in person and traffic migration. One is establishing the Prevention and Suspension of Trafficking in Person Act. Basically, the Anti-Trafficking in Person Act is an improvement from the 1997 Prevention and Suppression of Trafficking in Women and Children Act, which was deemed unable to accommodate the safety of all victims, especially men and male victims. Male victims are generally trafficked and exploited as workers in finishing industry. Next is the Alien Employment Act. Not only as a country of origin, transit, and source of humanity trafficking, but Thailand is also a country of origin, transit, and source for international migration. In 2008, the Thai government issued the Alien Employment Act. Given the large number of migration flow into Thailand, the Thai government is trying to regulate migrant workers with low skill who wants to work with Thailand. To overcome the current migration flow, this policy is basic policy for employing low-skilled workers. The alien referred to in this law are people who have citizenship other than Thailand. B is Thai government cooperation with Southeast Asia countries and institution government. First is cooperation with the MOU to deal with the problem of Thailand. Second is cooperation with the ELO in the form of the Great Book that discuss the problem migrant workers and also build the various supporting facilities such as transit plans, shelters, and hardcover processes to improve protection for victims. So that's it for today's presentation and thank you for your attention. Wassalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.